certain kind of difficulties in implementation of educational institutions. That is also very important to know. So we have invited resource person, very eminent resource person rather say, Dr. Professor Arshad Ikram Sahab. Are you here, sir?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. I'm here.
Walaikum assalam. Walaikum assalam. Yes. Yes, Arshad Saab is with us. Arshad Saab, I have introduced to you with our participants, and our participants are from different colleges and universities. They are being engaged there for teaching work, and they are very dynamic, raising questions to the resource person. That is really insightful questions. And I do hope in this session he will also enjoy and he will interact with you in a disciplined manner. So let us enjoy the learning. You are most welcome, Arshad
Thank you.
Sahab, and I am
Thank you
highly
so much.
grateful that you have consented and you agreed to deliver this lecture in our session. Thank you very much. Please start your lecture, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Nasreen Sahiba, and good morning to all the participants. Today I am. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Sir, namaskar.
Namaskar.
So, I am given to speak on critical pattern. Since
Namaste,
all
sir.
of you, Ji, are you saying something?
No, sir.
Okay. Since this topic comprises two words, two keywords, one is critical, another is pedagogy, and most of you are from teacher education institutions. So you know what pedagogy is. It is art of teaching, it is craft of teaching, and obviously it is science of teaching. When it is science of teaching, we are more concerned about the teaching methods that we use. And when we consider it as art of teaching, every teacher has his or her own teaching style. So their teaching style matters while transacting the content. On one hand, we have a very scientific approach, that is pedagogy as science of teaching, where we meticulously use different teaching methods according to the situation. And another thing is art of teaching, that is every teacher has their own style of teaching. And third one is craft of teaching. When we do minds-on, hands-on activities in the classroom, it becomes craft of teaching. Amalgamation of three makes pedagogy unique. But when we talk about pedagogy, obviously the word pedagogy uh, emanates from the word pet, that means child. So we are still, struggling to debate over these two issues. One is pedagogy, teaching to the young children, and andragogy, teaching adults. But anyway, in this particular session, where I am going to discuss with you about critical pedagogy, it is not pedagogy in isolation, but the very word critical makes it very meaningful. So I'm going to upload the slides. So first we'll have to make it sure that my slides are visible. Slides covered. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Visible.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let's start the session and let us discuss what exactly the term critical pedagogy stands for. The term critical pedagogy is referred to. Now, when we talk about critical pedagogy, we must know that this term was embraced by the academic community and university scholars of United States of America. And there has been a long list who very categorically explained the term critical pedagogy. And obviously, we cannot deny the fact that Paulo Freire emerges the first name who, in his first text, that is critical pedagogy, talked at length how critical pedagogy can be used in the classroom. The other names may include Kinshele, Macedo, Wexler, McLaren, Shaw, Gardner, Giroux. Giroux talked critical pedagogy in his political discourse. Now we will be dealing with critical pedagogy with reference to education. A classroom where we, as teacher educators, interact with our student teachers or our student teachers who interacts with students. And the last name is Hooks. So these are the names who contributed to this particular area, that is critical pedagogy. Now the question is, what is critical? So basically, it is a teaching approach which attempts to help the students question and challenge domination and the beliefs and practices that dominate. Now, from here, you must recall the concept of banking system as given by Paulo Freire in his in his pedagogy of office and in other educational writers that he prepared him. He was not. He expressed his resentment about the contemporary education system. जिनका माइक खुला उनको वो बंद कर लें तो थोड़ा सा
Manoj ji, kindly mute yourself. Manoj ji.
तो yes. So he gave the concept of banking system. Like Ivan Illich, he was also not satisfied with the contemporary education system. And according to him, it is the teacher's dominating position in the classroom which does not allow students to speak their heart out. They are not given autonomy. They are not given freedom to speak their heart out. And every student, regardless of the fact they come from different backgrounds, different socio-economic background, different cultural background, different linguistic background, all of them are endowed with some indigenous knowledge. So as teachers, we should not feel that these students who come to our classrooms are like empty vessels, and it is our knowledge by virtue of which we deposit their money. As we do in the bank, we deposit money, we deposit knowledge into their minds, and they start behaving and thinking accordingly. So this kind of domination of the teachers, this kind of classroom practices, he was not satisfied. And that is why he was of the view that it is the critical pedagogy which is the only panacea, it is only solution, for overcoming the teacher's domination. Not necessarily all the teachers, do like this. Majority of us, are in the habit of, dominating our students. So basically, the purpose of critical pedagogy is to make all the students, critically conscious. Now you have got another very important term, critical consciousness. In order to better understand what exactly critical pedagogy is. Let us know what is critical consciousness and how to make our students critically conscious. According to Erasure, who is also one of the contributors to critical pedagogy, a student can be critically conscious by thinking, reading, writing, and speaking while going beneath the surface. You must be familiar with another sociologist. His name is Derrida. Derrida was also not satisfied with the contemporary education system. And he was of the view that it is we teachers, which who provide the text and also the meaning. The students seemingly do not have any role to read the text because meaning is usually imposed by the teacher. Derrida was of the view that all the students should deconstruct meaning because their own background, the schema that they have, their thinking, their reading, their writing, and speaking all together contribute to their understanding. And all of them deconstruct meaning on their own, not necessarily we should impose meaning. So let them uh, uh, look at the meaning which is behind the text, and this is how a student can be critically conscious. But mind you, if a student is not habitual of reading good text, he is not having good reading experience along with life experience, because a student who is a good observer, he will observe each and everything, because all the text which we read in our classroom are directly or indirectly related to our day-to-day life situation. So in order to think, it is important that we need to be good observer. And all these things, these three important language skills, reading, writing, and speaking, along with thinking skills, we need to have good life experience. And that could be possible by virtue of being good observer. And by doing so, a student must go beyond myths. There are many myths, many cliches, many received wisdom which we receive from our teachers or from our elders, and mere opinions which are formed, and students are not taken into cognizance, they are not taken into account while forming any opinion. So this kind of critical consciousness is essentially needed for using this pedagogy that is called critical pedagogy. Now, important thing is how to be critically conscious. So most importantly, students must understand the deep meaning. So it's not that whatever teachers uh, give to them in the form of text, in the form of content, they should take the meaning as truth. They should go beneath the text. They should go into the root causes, the social context. If we are not aware, if at the awareness level, our political awareness, our social awareness, our spiritual awareness, uh, if we are lacking in that, obviously we will not be able to relate it with the social context and our personal consequences of any action, event, object, process, organization where we are studying, or the organization about which the textbook is talking about. Our own experience, text, subject matter, policy, mass media, or discourse, because mass media plays a very important role. You must be familiar with another very important role in the name of uh, Foucault. Foucault, almost 200 years ago, he propounded a theory. I should not say a theory. Yes, you can call it a theory, but it's a concept that is discourse analysis. I'm talking it with reference to mass media. So when Foucault criticized the UK media, the media of United Kingdom, he was of the view what we are seeing in India these days. So the role of media is to present the realities which are there in the society. But instead of presenting the realities related to unemployment, poverty, and other issues which touch the commoners, the common people. The media constructs the reality which does not exist through intertextuality. Intertextuality. So if we are not critically conscious, whatever media, disseminates, we will accept that. So we should not work on the received wisdom, either by the teachers or the media or any elderly people. So Foucault was critical about UK media, that media constructs reality which does not exist. And through intertextuality. What is intertextuality? Suppose, God forbid, Khuda na kare aisa ho, somebody makes an allegation on me. The other day, a towel will be put on my head and I'll be sent to the jail. And throughout the day and night, 24 hours, 48 hours, they will, encircle my face. And behind my face, there will be a music, very, very terrible music, and they will be speaking aloud, till others believe that, yes, I am a criminal. This is what we call intertextuality. Through different modes, they give effects so that common people can accept that this is reality. So media constructs reality which does not exist. Through discourse, and discourse are of three types of it. It may be written discourse, it may be verbal discourse, or it may be visual discourse. So through these three kinds of discourses, media works day and night till common people believe that this is reality. But a critical pedagogue, one who is critically conscious, will question all these things. The same student may question in the classroom also. Now, let us know the critical characteristics of critical pedagogy. These are the list of goals and methods that critical pedagogy tries to bring to education. And the objectives of this pedagogy or method of education. I told you, you may call it teaching method, you may call it teaching approach. So critical pedagogy is more towards pedagogy which is considered as science of teaching, not art of teaching or not craft. That means a teacher needs to meticulously use this particular pedagogy, this particular method of teaching, in the classroom to empower a student. How can students be empowered? If they are given right to speak their heart out, if they are given right to raise questions wherever they have doubts or any kind of uh, misunderstanding about certain concept, and help themselves. The second sentence is very important. We should not help them. We should make them independent readers by helping them help themselves. And overall, the purpose of critical pedagogy is to liberate them, to liberate the students from all kinds of oppression. See, gone are the days when we would talk about culture of silence. Plato, that was another concept, context, when Plato, in his Republic, talked about uh, formal discipline, and he was of the view that that the teachers need to be firm in order to cultivate good values among the students. And there was a famous phrase used during those period, spare the rod, spoil the child. Danda hata, bacha beta. That was another context. And during that period, even of 60s, 70s, and 80s, if you are if you received education from any convent school, in the corridors of all the convent schools, there would be painting of a girl putting her fingers on her mouth, and below that was written, SH dot dot dot. Shh, keep silence. Now, educationists and social activists, they have started realizing the menace of this thing. If the teacher, in order to create culture of silence in the classroom, repeatedly says, keep quiet, by doing so, he will be quietening the spirit of the students. So now from culture of silence, we have started talking about classroom noise. Classroom noise. Earlier, noise was not preferred. Now, classroom noise is preferred. And a good teaching is, uh, can be gauged, can be measured, can be judged uh, by virtue of the classroom uh, being full of noise. But noise doesn't mean that there should be free for all. सब बच्चे जो है मस्कुलर पावर अपनी यूज करें लड़ाई झगड़ा करें rather classroom noise refers to that now all the students are so excited, so eager, so enthusiastic that the moment a teacher asks a question, prompt comes the response from all the quarters. And teachers must not whiten their spirit by repeatedly saying keep quiet, keep quiet. So he has provided them opportunity to speak in the classroom, to raise their voice, to raise their concern. So that is why we can uh, sum it up by saying that the larger aim of critical pedagogy is to liberate all the students from oppression. Now, we need to understand context also. When we talk about anti-colonial education, native population need to have their own education system. They need to develop their own culture. It can be applicable to Indian context also, where we have different types, different ethnic groups. But in case NCRT, prepares the syllabus on the central level, and it introduces to be accepted by all the states which are different in terms of language, in terms of culture, in terms of geographic condition. For example, textbooks have certain limitations. For example, there's a chapter on harvest festival. So in the textbooks, you will find a mention of 2 or 3 harvest festivals celebrated in Kerala, in Punjab, in northern part of it. But India is an agrarian society where harvest festivals are celebrated in different shades, in different tones and tenors across the country. So suppose students from other regions than the ones whose harvest festivals are glorified in the textbook, they may be feeling alienated. So they have every right to ask the teachers to elaborately discuss it in the classroom. And if the teacher is not having that kind of awareness, obviously he will not be able to uh, uh, create an ambience in the classroom which may put all the students in a place where they should start feeling at home. So this is very important. So is the case with native population. So every native population should have their own education system. They need to develop their own culture. Their education should not simply be an extension of the culture of their colonies. So this is basically what is happening. Now we have started working on purging our textbooks from all kinds of biases and prejudices, let alone colonial overtone or feudal overtone or any kind of gender biasness or stereotyping. Now, as I told you that every individual student possesses some indigenous knowledge. Their knowledge should be appreciated and their knowledge should be fruitfully utilized in the classroom in order that some new knowledge could be constructed. The knowledge of indigenous and subjugated people who are forced to submit to the will of another group is very important. Let us make it sure that the knowledge of native people, the people who come from far off remote areas, their knowledge should not be suppressed. Because Michael Appel also questions when textbooks or any central agency, any establishment, presents some knowledge, he questions the legitimacy of that. And that is why the knowledge of indigenous and subjugated people must be given important place in the text. Because when oppressed people learn about their own culture, history, or medicinal practices, religion, heritage, this can have a transformative effect on their lives and lead to their own empowerment. Empowerment, because now they will come to know that, that we are not simply marginalized because we have not contributed anything to the society. We contributed to the society, but unfortunately, with the passage of time, we were not given due importance, we were alienated, we were marginalized. And when their contributions are documented in the textbooks, when their contributions are narrated in the classrooms by the teachers, they start feeling empowered, in the class. Another important thing is that indigenous, now NEP 2020 has also started talking about Indian knowledge system. When we talk about indigenous knowledge, it is equally important for people in the West, in India, or other parts of the world. When we talk about the West, who have ignored it in favor of Western knowledge, because Oriental Occidental debate you must be familiar with, which was initiated by in 1837 by Lord Macaulay, and he dumped all kinds of Indian knowledges on the pretext that they are not authentic, they are not valid, and they cannot be trusted upon. So who we are to judge that uh, this knowledge can be trusted upon, and other knowledge is valid or authentic, and it should be disseminated. It is like this, there is a famous social linguist in America. His name is William Labov. He worked on the dialectology. In America, native languages, English, no doubt, but there are more than 100 dialects being spoken, being used by uh, uh, natives of United States of America. And their dialects determine their social status also. So this is the elitist tendency that they judge people as to whether they are couth, they are civil, they are uh, having cheerful mannerism on the pretext of language. Suppose some laborers are working uh, here in the premises of our department, and she is feeling thirsty, and she knocks at my door, and she asks for water in her own language. कि भैया ना मिलिएगा. What I will do, I will not label her as uncouth or uncivil, but somehow or the other, through our facial gesture, through our non-verbal interaction, I will make her feel that she does not belong to us. She is uncivil. She is uncouth. वो गवार है. William Labov questioned this: who we are to judge others on the basis of language. And finally, he arrived at this conclusion that no language in the world should be called substandard. A language may be non-standard, but a language cannot be substandard. So what we do, whether it is indigenous knowledge or the dialect or the language, on the basis of these things, we judge, we become judgmental. And many of the social groups, they are marginalized, they are alienated because of this fact. So there is much to be learned from the knowledge of indigenous peoples across the globe, let alone India, because they are marginalized on the pretext that they have indigenous knowledge, and this knowledge cannot be validated or authenticated. Now the question is, students must be able to analyze competing power interests between groups and individuals within a society. Now, what is happening here? Our education system has uh, many lacuna, many loopholes, many shortcomings, and we have a very flawed education system because when our constitution was introduced, before that and after that also, so many education commissions and so many educational committees recommended that we should have common school system. But forget about Aligarh or other parts of India. In Delhi, which is the capital of the country, we have different levels of schools. We have Sanskriti school, where the sons and daughters of bureaucrats study there. They feel very privileged. Then we have modern school Barakhamba, the businessmen's sons and daughters study there. Then we have B-level schools, private schools, C-level private schools. According to our economic status, we send our children there. And then within government schools, we have different levels. We have Navyog school, we have Pratibha school, we have schools of excellence, we have Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya schools, we have Kendri Vidyalaya, and in the last comes Nagar Nigam Vidyalaya. So suppose the products of all these schools are put together, they will find it difficult to interact with one another. Why? Because every one of them feels that they have separate entity, they have separate background. So this kind of critical consciousness needs to be built among us. And Karl Marx, who propounded the conflict theory, he was of the view that seemingly, apparently, it is the capital class which calls itself as the purveyors of all, because he gives employment and gives meager amount of salary to those who work day and night. But the majority of the benefits are taken away by the capital class, and the working class have to live a very ordinary life. And they say that, see, we are giving you your sons and daughters education, but that education is not giving them any employability skills because they are studying in substandards. This is how they are put in false consciousness. See, we are giving you employment. See, we are giving education. This is what is happening in different shades and forms, in our country also. In government schools, students are given midday meal. Scholarship also, 300 rupees scholarship, and free textbooks and uniforms. But at the end of the day, when these students are passed out from these schools, they don't have any employability skills. As a result of which, what happens? They feel cheated. They are not able to compete in this cutthroat competitive world. So this critical consciousness is very important. They must be able to identify who gains and who loses in specific situations. If this kind of critical consciousness is not built, is not developed in them, they will accept everything. They will be, like parasites who will always be having faith in the received wisdom. So they must be made aware that privileged groups often have an interest in supporting the status quo to protect their interests. So that is why Karl Marx, when he talks about superstructure, he says that it is the capital class which controls the superstructure, the legal system, the political system, the economic system, and education. So when we talk about political system, all the political goals are established, set up by them to suit their interests. Economic system, all the policies are formulated to serve their purpose. Education, they are given best education in best private schools, and now government is planning to introduce foreign university campuses in metropolitan cities. So what will happen? The best teachers from central university, from IIMs, from IITs, and other reputed institutions will migrate to these campuses on the pretext that they will be given handsome amount of salary. So what will happen? Slowly and gradually, these centers of excellence, these central universities and other reputed institutions will turn into Nagar Nigam Vidyalaya, where students from poor socio-economic background will study. So we should be aware of these things, how policies are formed or how policies are implemented in order to suit the purpose of those who are haves and who do not belongs to other category, that is have nots. So they must be made aware that the privileged groups often have an interest in supporting the status quo to protect their advantage. Now, we should also understand the political nature of education. All education is political. The United States of America may claim that it is the largest democracy and it is the protector of democracy, but there are also all kinds of uh, prejudices and uh, biasness may be seen. So teachers and students must be made aware of the politics that surround education. Every subsequent government changes the national curriculum framework and also the textbooks to suit their interests, to to indoctrinate their ideology. The way students are taught and what they are taught sets a political agenda that every student must know. And teachers themselves have political notions. When Max Weber says, uh, Karl Marx was of the opinion that our society is divided on the basis of economic class. But Max Weber, who also propounded conflict theory, he was of the view that our society is divided on the basis of social class. And he did talk about political group. So every one of us may claim that I do not have any direct affiliation with any political parties, but we have political notions that favor certain political party or their ideology, and that is why all the teachers, while transacting the content, they also export the hidden agenda. So students must understand that knowledge itself is political. And that is why Michael Apple always questions the legitimacy of knowledge. And that is why they must understand the power of knowledge, which is crucial. Many educational institutions use their power to keep the privileged on top and underprivileged on the bottom. And that is why Ivan Illich, who gave the concept of deschooling society, he was also not satisfied with the education system. And he was of the view that when schools were established on the expectations that outside the schools there exist so many classes, economic classes, higher class, higher middle class, middle class, lower middle class, poor class, BPL class. But when students are in one uniform, they become one entity. But again, what is happening in the classrooms? Based on the ability, based on the performance, we divide the students largely on two groups, performing students and uh, struggling students. And struggling students are often labeled as uh, average or below average or defer or slow learners or learning disabled. So we label them, and that is why they are marginalized. So instead of dismantling the classes which exist outside the classroom, we create many more classes within a class. So this is the irony of the fact. But educational institutions also do generally that they use their power to keep the privileged on top and underprivileged on the bottom. That means those who are performing, they are encouraged. They are given all kinds of leverages, but those who are struggling, they are labeled, and labeling of any sort leads to the marginalization, leads to alienation. So this kind of critical consciousness must be built among the students. What we learn in the schools and universities is usually validated scientifically. The problem is often the people who produce this scientific knowledge are the people in positions of power who dominate over office people. Incidentally, what is happening there? Those who are uh, powerful, those who are in dominating positions, they formulate policies for those who are oppressed, and they don't have any feel for them, and that is why it backfires. Often backfires. It at times it proves to be counterproductive. So, how much of the knowledge that that you have learned in the school is Western and written by dead white maize, and similarly in India, by those who are holding superior positions. Now, when we talk about critical pedagogy, we must not forget that justice and equality in education, when we talk about social justice, when we talk about equality, uh, uh, we should introduce social justice and equality in right earnest, in true letter and spirit, true letter and spirit. If we are not doing so, what we will be doing, we will be using selective morality. For those who are privileged, we are giving different types of education. But those who are coming from poor background, they are given different types of education. A social and educational vision of justice and equality should be the basis of all. So let us all the social groups be treated alike. Now, economic determination needs to be rejected. When we talk about critical pedagogy, we should understand that it is the economic factor which alone do not predominate who has power and who doesn't. Students must be made to realize that people are also oppressed because of issues of. Now we are moving towards Max Weber, who talks about division on the basis of social class. So we have race, we have class. In India, we have caste, we have gender, sexuality, religion, and other physicality. On the basis of these issues, uh, uh, we need to come out with a policy which may give social justice to all, which may promote equality, and in case there are certain social groups which are marginalized, which are away from the main, should be equitable measure to bring them to the main. आवाज साफ आ रही है, क्लियर आ रही है?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
जी
जी
सर
जी
जी
सर
सर
Yes, sir.
जी आ रही है, आवाज आ रही
जी
है,
सर
जी आ रही है।
आवाज आ रही है सर
थैंक यू सो मच सर। क्या
Yes,
होता है
sir.
कि
क्लियर
15-20 मिनट तक जब आप मोनोलॉग होता है तो थोड़ा थोड़ा लगता है कि मैं शायद किसी और प्लेनेट पे बैठा हूँ जहाँ पर कोई नहीं है, अकेला हूँ।
नहीं ऐसा नहीं
जो
है,
आप
हम
बोलने
आपको
लगे,
सुन रहे हैं बहुत गौर से।
सुन रहे हैं, अच्छी बात है।
जी
सुन रहे हैं तो ठीक लग रहा है कि नहीं?
सुन रहे हैं सर
ठीक है, चलिए अब हम बात करते हैं। गोल ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी इज टू लिसन ह्यूमन सफरिंग। तो ह्यूमन सफरिंग क्या है? ह्यूमन सफरिंग को हमको समझे। द एलिवेशन ऑफ ऑपरेशन एंड ह्यूमन सफरिंग is a key aspect of the purpose of education. So let us not be governed by others, We should not get influenced by others. Any political leader, he befools us, because he needs votes. He needs to be there in power. And by doing so, he befools us. He fools us in fact, he puts us in fool's paradise. So we should first understand the human suffering. How he is, playing politics on the dead mortars of those who are marginalized, let alone those who are alive, who are leading pathetic life. So, as I told you, I was talking about banking system. Paulo Freire was against the banking system. The student should not be viewed as an empty account to be filled in by the teacher. Every student is endowed with knowledge, and their knowledge must be respected. Their knowledge must be accepted, their knowledge must be respected, and their knowledge must be celebrated. These three key terms we use for diversity, for maintaining diversity, and for promoting diversity. To promote diversity, we should first accept the diversity. We should first accept, we should then respect the diversity, and then we should celebrate the diversity. And celebration always brings out a kind of pleasure. It provides us pleasurable experience. So that means, in a way, we will be developing a kind of we feeling. Our students are not different entity. We as teachers are not different. Together, we are constructing knowledge. Together, we are learning. All the teachers are learners. All the students are teachers. And in the process, we are doing uh, uh, doing one task or the other. So teachers should know that students have life experiences, their own reading experience, their own life experience, their own knowledge. that is key in shaping their education. So we should not impose them the knowledge which comes from the establishment. Good schools do not blame students for their failures or strip students of the knowledge they bring to the class. This is the irony of the fact that we, judge our students on the basis of their ability, and that is why we form ability grouping on the basis of their performance, academic performance in the class. But the fact is, when we are from education domain, the very first word education, which comes from educare, which means to churn out the hidden talent. So that means we accept this fact that all the students are endowed with some talent which is hidden, which is latent. And as teachers, we need to churn out the talent. But instead of doing so, what we do, we blame on others that they are not able to perform. Just one minute. Now, change in relationship between student and teacher. Gone are the days, as I told you, when teachers were the authorities. Nobody could question their teachers. He becomes at times an icon which should be respected. A deep respect should exist between teacher and student. I'm not saying that that respect should be replaced by something else. Respect should be there. We should think in terms of teacher, student, and student teacher. That is, as I told you a short while ago, a teacher who learns and a learner teaches. So, in the making of a good teacher, the role of student is immense. Suppose if in a classroom, थोड़ी बहुत सीरियस हम हो गए, तो ऐसा लाइट में कुछ बात कर लें कि मैं क्लास में पढ़ा रहा हूँ, मैंने कहा काऊ का मतलब गाय और हाउ का मतलब पैर, और बच्चे खुश हो गए, कह रहे अरे ऐसा टीचर तो मिला ही नहीं, आज तक हमें नहीं मालूम था कि हाउ का मतलब गाय, हाउ का मतलब गाय, हाउ का मतलब पैर. क्यों? क्योंकि उनको आता ही नहीं. हमने उनको ऐसे पढ़ाया कि वो सब कुछ यकीन करने पर तैयार. लेकिन अच्छी क्लास होगी जहां पर हमने क्रिटिकल पेडागोजी, वो क्वेश्चन करेंगे कि हाउ कैन यू से दैट हाउ स्टैंड्स फॉर बैड. वो क्वेश्चन करेगा और टीचर अलर्ट हो जाएगा, वो अपनी नॉलेज को अपडेट करेगा. एंड दैट इज व्हाई अ लर्नर हु टीचेस इट. अदरवाइज हम भी फूल्स पैराडाइज में रहेंगे. हमने जो कुछ भी पढ़ाया चीयरफुल एक्सप्रेशन के साथ, रिसीव्ड विजडम बच्चों के पास पहुंच गया और हम अपने आप को सक्सेसफुल टीचर मान के चले. जॉन डूवी, a famous educational thinker, once said, if we teach today what we taught yesterday, we will rob our students of their learning. अगर आज हम as teachers वही पढ़ाते हैं जो हमने कल तक पढ़ाया, ऐसा करके हम बच्चों को उनके सुनहरे भविष्य से वंचित रखें, उनके ताबनाक मुस्तकबिल से उन्हें महरूम रखें. तो क्रिमिनल कौन हुआ? हम हुए, क्योंकि हमने अपनी नॉलेज को अपडेट नहीं किया. वी नीड टू अपडेट अवर टीचर्स, वी नीड टू बी स्मार्ट. स्मार्ट स्टूडेंट्स की, स्मार्ट क्लासरूम की, स्मार्ट मोबाइल, स्मार्ट टीवी की बात होने लगी, स्मार्ट बोर्ड की बात होने लगी. तो व्हाई नॉट वी टीचर्स बिकम स्मार्ट? एंड आवर स्मार्टनेस लाइज इन द फैक्ट that we need to update our knowledge. We need to refresh our age-long knowledge. We should be aware of the happenings around us. And then we will be able to listen to the voices of the students. And accordingly, we will learn many a thing from us. Now, teachers as researchers. If a teacher is not, all the roles in a society which human beings play, good roles, I'm saying positive roles, that a teacher plays in the classroom. He becomes a researcher. He becomes a doctor. He becomes a doctor because he diagnoses the academic ailment and then provides remedial measure. He becomes social engineer because in our classroom, students from different socio-economic, socio-cultural, and linguistic backgrounds, different parenting background, they have different familial background, different schooling background, they come here. And we form groups. And this is how we does the social engineering in the class. So we are engineer, we are doctor. We become mother when we teach language, because we always appreciate mother tongue and we'll never call it father tongue or uncle tongue or aunt tongue or other tongue. So all the roles we play in the class. The professionalism of teachers must be respected. If we are not professionally we are not sound as teachers, then there will be a question mark on our teaching. So part of the role of any educator involves becoming a scholar and a researcher. But in order to be professional, in order to behave like a professional teacher, it is mandatory that first we should become a scholar and a researcher. All the time we should be having curiosity and inquisitive sense to know where our students face problems, where they land in trouble, and how to help them overcome those difficulties or problems in understanding certain concepts. So we need to be researchers, and it is vital to know our students, their culture, knowledge-based language, etc. You must be familiar with John Deller's report, the International Charter of Education, in which 4 pillars of education are very beautifully defined. Learning to know. So we need to learn who our students are, then learning to be, learning to do, and the last thing is learning to live together. So when we know their culture, their knowledge, that means now we are fully conversant with and experienced in taking them into cognizance while transacting the content. And then the classroom will itself be treated as the second home for the children. So we will be familiar with their language, their knowledge base. So teachers must become warrior intellectuals. Now a teacher can be a soldier because he is not only knowledge worker, but also warrior intellectuals. People who know their students and their backgrounds and who are willing to fight for them, who is always ready to fight for them, instead of giving in that these are the students who can never perform well in the classroom. If we surrender as teachers that these are the ones who cannot be brought to the mainstream because they come from very awfully very poor background, this will be treated as our failure. So we need to be researching. Now, emancipation and intellectual growth. Education must both promote freedom, that is emancipation, and the changes that come from it. I always tell my participants that our classroom must be treated as learning ecosystem. And many of you are from science background. When we talk about ecosystem, usually we have 2 different types of ecosystem. One is natural ecosystem, another is artificial ecosystem. Suppose we buy an aquarium in which we put colorful fish, beautiful, very attractive, pretty fish we put into the aquarium. We change water on the weekly basis or on every fortnight. We give quality food to the fish, but after a fortnight, after a month, after 6 months, the fish remains the same, in terms of size and. On the other hand, when fish are there in the pond, which stinks, which gives out foul smell, we cannot pass by the pond. We often put our fingers on our nose because ponds usually stink, gives out foul smell. But if the fish are there, they grow both in size and number, on both size and number rapidly. How? Because they are given autonomy there. They are given freedom. Unlike the aquarium, where we don't have autonomy or freedom. So seemingly the aquarium looks very attractive because of the color and the size of the fish. But for want of autonomy, for want of freedom, these fish never grow, both in terms of size and number. They remain the same. They maintain the status quo. So is the case with classroom. But I don't say that our classrooms should not be artificial ecosystem. When we talk about artificial ecosystem, we should have quality infrastructure. But at the same time, we cannot compromise with freedom. Both teachers and students should be given freedom, autonomy. NEP 2020 does talk about what? Innovation and creativity. But innovation and creativity will be a distant dream, will be a mirage in case freedom and autonomy is not given to students and teachers. Because the basic prerequisite is that teachers should be given autonomy to experiment in the classroom. And students should be given autonomy to question in the classroom. Just wait for them. Hello? एक संग बाद बात करो. So education must also allow knowledge, reasoning and understanding. In order to help our students to grow intellectually, these three things are essentially important. Knowledge with reasoning and understanding. And these two goals should never be in conflict. They should always be in sync. Those who seek freedom attempt to gain the power to control their lives in unity with a community that seeks justice. Now, we come to critical pedagogy's role, which is to expose the forces that prevent individuals and groups from making the decisions that will affect them. So when we develop critical pedagogy, when we use critical pedagogy in the class, we expect that our products, our students, will be able to take rightful decisions, which will prove to be a great turning point in their lives. Education often reflects the interests and needs of new modes of pedagogy. I'm leaving this because there are so many slides. A cycle of critical praxis that must be established. What is praxis? Praxis is a problem solving. Now, if I want to use critical pedagogy in the classroom, I should first identify a problem. Research that problem. Develop a collective, not an individual plan, but a collective plan of action to address the problem. And then implement the collective plan of action. And the last
Mute your mic, please. Participants, mute your mic, please. There's disturbance. Please mute your mic. किसका नंबर है? सदीस किसी का नंबर भी है. Please mute your mic, participants. जिया साहब देखिए प्लीज ये किसका माइक म्यूट है.
बुरा मत मानिएगा, क्योंकि कभी कभी हम बहुत अच्छा कस्टर्ड जब खाते हैं ना, उसमें 2-3 कंकड़ अगर आ जाए तो कस्टर्ड का स्वाद उसका मजा आता है. ऐसे ही जब हम उनसे सुनते हैं, बोलते हैं, तो इस तरह की कर्कश आवाज आती तो जमानुर रहमान साहब, चलिए फिर हम अपनी बात आगे करते हैं. क्या हमारी स्लाइड्स, हमारा प्रेजेंटेशन जो है वो विजिबल है ना?
8 नंबर रूम में
Sir. Yes, sir. Visible.
Evaluate the action, assess. तो लास्ट में हम एक्शन को असेस करते हैं. Evaluate the action, assess its efficacy and re-examine the state of the problem. ये एक छोटा सा एक प्रेजेंटेशन था जो क्रिटिकल पेडागोजी का क्लासरूम में यूज कर सकते हैं हम, जहाँ हम प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग मेथड यूज करते हैं. प्रैक्टिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग मेथड. तो उसमें इन्वॉल्वमेंट, उसमें एंगेजमेंट सभी बच्चे एंगेज पाते. और पहली शर्त ये होती है क्रिटिकल पेडागोजी की, व्हेन वी इंक्लूड ऑल द स्टूडेंट. ये नहीं कि क्लास में जो सबसे वोकल है बच्चा, वन हु ऑलवेज टेक्स अ लीड in responding to the queries made by the teacher, one who always questions in the class, he is given the chance. But let us give chance to one and all, so that our classroom process must be more participatory. और ये participatory नहीं होगा तो क्या होगा? Hegemony. की तरफ ले जाएगा। हेजेमनी क्या है? डोमिनेंस है। हेजेमनी इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स नोशन। देयर आर पीपल हु हैव डोमिनेंट पावर, डू नॉट ऑलवेज गेट दिस पावर थ्रू फिजिकल फोर्स। जरूरी नहीं कि हमारे पास फिजिकल फोर्स हो। वो दौर चला गया जब मस्कुलर जो राजा होता था वो दूसरे कमजोर फिजिकली वीक को पटक करके खुद राजगद्दी पर आ जाता था। अब हमारी इंटेलेक्चुअल जो पावर है, हमारी जो मेंटल पावर है, वो ज्यादा मैटर है। तो दे गेन दिस पावर थ्रू सोशल एंड साइकोलॉजिकल अटेम्प्ट्स टू विन पीपल्स कंसर्न। दिस इज ऑफन डन बाय डोमिनेटिंग कल्चर। मैं आपको छोटा सा एग्जांपल दूं, ग्लोबलाइजेशन। ग्लोबलाइजेशन, ताकि ये समझ में आ जाए हेजेमनी का जो ख्याल है आपके मन में, ज्यादा अच्छी तरीके से आप उसको इंटरनलाइज कर पाए। ग्लोबलाइजेशन के आने के बाद नो डाउट एक्सेसिबिलिटी बढ़ी, वर्ल्ड एक ग्लोबल विलेज बना, इंटरचेंजेबिलिटी की बात करने लगे हम। हमने एमएड यहाँ से किया और बॉस्टन से, हार्वर्ड से हमने पीएचडी एजुकेशन में कर लिया, इंटरचेंजेबिलिटी हुई। हमने यहाँ से पीएचडी की और किसी दूसरे टॉप क्लास इंस्टीट्यूशन में वर्ल्ड के, मैं वहाँ पर असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर बन गया, या वाइसी वर्सा, वहाँ के लोग, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के लोग यहाँ पर प्रोफेसर या विजिटिंग प्रोफेसर हुए। तो ग्लोबलाइजेशन का ये फायदा हुआ कि एक्सेसिबिलिटी वो मुमकिन हो पाई, क्योंकि एडवांस्ड मीन्स ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, एडवांस मीन्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन। इंटरचेंजेबिलिटी पॉसिबल हुई क्योंकि हमने इंटरनेशनल लेवल का अपना करिकुलम बनाया और हमारी जो पॉलिसीज थी दैट इज कंपैटिबल विद द इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड। और तीसरा ये मिथ हमने खत्म कर दी कि हम अर्लियर वी वुड टेक प्राइड इन बीइंग इंडिपेंडेंट। बहुत इंडिपेंडेंट होने पर हम गौरवान्वित महसूस करते, लेकिन ये मिथ टूट गई ग्लोबलाइजेशन के आने के बाद कि कोई भी कंट्री इंडिपेंडेंट है। इंडिपेंडेंट हो सकता है इस सेंस में कि कोई एक्सटर्नल एजेंसी, कोई एक्सटर्नल पावर जो है उसको कंट्रोल नहीं कर, लेकिन द फैक्ट इज वी ऑल आर इंटरडिपेंडेंट। किसी के पास नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज है, किसी के पास टेक्नोलॉजी है, किसी के पास स्किल्ड मैन पावर है, किसी के पास अनस्किल्ड मैन पावर है, किसी के पास आयरन है, किसी के पास कुछ है। तो वी आर सपोर्टिंग वन अनदर, वी ऑल आर इंटरडिपेंडेंट। ये ग्लोबलाइजेशन का एक बहुत अच्छा पहलू है। और नो डाउट ऑल द कंट्रीज अपरेंटली आर बीइंग इकोनॉमिकली एफ्लुएंट और इकोनॉमिकली वेल ऑफ होते जा रहे हैं। इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन धीरे धीरे स्लोली एंड ग्रेजुअली उनकी अच्छी हुई। बट the sad part of the story is, in sociology we use two terms, melting pot and stew pot. Melting pot क्या होता है? When dominating culture dominates in such a manner that all other cultures of the world lose out their identity. ये melting, एक लैंग्वेज बची रह जाएगी, एक कल्चर बचा रहेगा और बाकी सब खाक में रहेगा। और दूसरा क्या है? स्टू पॉट। हमें करना क्या चाहिए? सोशियोलॉजी का रोल क्या है? हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम का रोल क्या होना चाहिए? स्टू पॉट को या सैलेड पॉट को, स्टू पॉट का नहीं या सैलेड पॉट को प्रमोट कर। एक प्लेट में आपने देखा सलाद जब आती है तो उसमें शलजम भी है, चुकंदर भी है, मूली भी है, प्याज भी है, हरा धनिया भी है, पुदीना भी है। सबकी आइडेंटिटी इंटैक्ट होती है, रहते सब एक पे। स्टू पॉट, आपने स्टू जरूर खाया होगा, उसकी खासियत क्या होती है? उसमें सारे खड़े मसाले होते हैं, उनकी आइडेंटिटी इंटैक्ट होती है। जब हम खाते हैं तो कहीं पर लौंग का मजा आ जाता है, कहीं पर काली मिर्च का, कहीं पर धनिया का, कहीं पर। तो स्टू पॉट को प्रमोट करना था, सैलेड पॉट को प्रमोट करना। अनफॉर्चुनेटली ग्लोबलाइजेशन इज प्रमोटिंग मेल्टिंग पॉट। Slowly and gradually we are losing out our identity because of dominating culture of Western United States. Sick. This is often done by, as I told you, if you look at the second last point, this is often done by dominating culture, influencing media, schools, family, the church. मैकडोनल्डाइजेशन हो रहा है पूरे 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 क्या कहते हैं वर्ल्ड का, कि आप गुवाहाटी जाएं, आप त्रिवेंद्रम जाएं, आप बेंगलुरु जाएं, आप बनारस जाएं, आप कश्मीर श्रीनगर जाएं, हर जगह मैकडोनल्ड एक ही तक एक ही कलर का काउंटर बना हुआ है, 2-4 बच्चे वहां पर बैठे हैं, 2-3 मेन्यू है उनके पास, और बाहर मैकडोनल्ड अंकल बैठे हैं, उसमें बच्चे बैठा कर। तो वी आर प्रमोटिंग होमोजेनाइटी। वो होमोजेनाइटी कैसे प्रमोट कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि वन डोमिनेटिंग कल्चर ऑफ वेस्ट इज डोमिनेटिंग अस एंड वी आर सो इन्फ्लुएंस्ड दैट वी आर लूजिंग अवर आइडेंटिटी। जबकि नेचर क्या कहता है? नेचर बायोडाइवर्सिटी को प्रमोट कर। यूकलिप्टस के पेड़ आप 5 किलोमीटर लगा लीजिए, all the students will fly away. Oh, sorry, all the birds will fly away. Only few birds like crows, they will perch on the branches of eucalyptus tree. Why? Because eucalyptus trees usually give out stinking smell, which cannot be tolerated upon by other birds. That is why they fly away. On the other hand, when we plant different plants, it acts on the quality of the oxygen. Even nature, likes biodiversity. Professor Imtiaz Hussain, who is no more, earlier professor in JNU, he gave a lecture, on diversity, and he said that for the last several decades, Europe promoted homogeneity on the pretext that their culture is, and that is why they are not able to produce single greatest literators, scientists, doctors, or engineers. So when we promote homogeneity, what will happen? We will promote it at the cost of losing out the identity of other culture, other religion, other caste, which will ultimately put a curb on the heterogeneity, resulting in the diminishing of creativity, innovations, and all sorts. We can be creative, we can be innovative when we have diversity. But since this is often done by dominating culture, influencing media, schools, family, the church, in every family you will find the culture is more or less the same. Global culture we are, uh, following. Mother can be a good cook, father can be a good cook. The best food is being cooked at home. But what happens? The children always are glued to the mobile, giving order on Swiggy's and other such agencies. So they prefer having food from outside sources, instead of the best quality food being served at home. So this kind of homogeneity is prevailing everywhere. This is what we call hegemony, because this is being governed by the central place. So seemingly globalization is good, but we are not aware of the sad part of the story. So when we talk about objectives of critical pedagogy, one of the key objectives of critical pedagogy is to allow students to gain the necessary social skills to actively participate in a transformed and inclusive democratic community. In an inclusive democratic community, where we should develop the feeling, we should not nurture any kind of grudges or grouses against anyone on the pretext that we are from the culture which is supreme, we are superior to others. Why? We belong to upper class, we belong to the higher class. Whether we are all one entity. So when you can identify the sources of power, recognize your own position in relation to power, and understand the political nature of what you learn, you can develop your own social actions. Amrit Sen wrote a wonderful book, on identity and violence, and he was critical of the people, uh, upper class people in India, that they hold multiple identity. Suppose I belong to one particular religion. Okay, I belong to that religion. I take pride in in being a part of that religion. Then I belong to the upper caste. Then I am an IS officer. Then I live in a posh colony. Then I have many cars, each worth of 1 crore. So all these identities, they often become burdensome here, and ultimately they lead to violence. happens. So what critical pedagogy seeks to give those who have been excluded from power the right and ability to have an input into civics. Their right to have a say in the decision. Their right to question when the policy is not formulated to suit their purpose. Searches out contradictions and then reflects on all elements of social action. Subject and object, process and product, rhetoric and reality. They must discuss. And this could be possible when they are critically conscious. And in order to be critically conscious, to recapitulate, they should be good observer. They should have good life experience. They should be good reader. They should be good writer. They should be good thinker. And together, all these things, a teacher needs to provide opportunity to them to discuss each and every issue at length in the classroom. Now, there may be contradictions. So, when we have constructive thinking and constructive action, so we will discover funds of knowledge. So, not necessarily that contradiction is bad, but wherever any conflict emerges, any contradiction is there. So we should be given power to pull through courage, to speak our heart out, to talk at length about the contradiction, in order to come to certain resolutions. We need to contradict. We should be given right to contradict. Not necessarily we should have a very goody session. Everybody is appreciating, okay, you are good. You taught very well. You are a very good teacher. You give very good smile. We cannot live on these things, in this 21st century, where we start talking about 21st century skills. So when we talk about a school or any educational institution, it is a cultural terrain of students. It is the place where students are empowered and their self-transformation is made. And they should be made free from all kinds of indoctrination. And they should be given opportunity to get socialized. Because any formal education institution, whether it is school or college or university, it is thus the agency for secondary socialization. Family being the agency for primary socialization, where students develop feeling with their family members. And the moment he enters into a formal institution, he interacts with the children coming from different familial background, different socio-economic background and socio-cultural background, linguistic background, different parenting, different schooling, etc., etc. Now, for the critical educator, there are many sides to a problem, and often these sides are linked to class, race, and gender. So all the social groups which exist in our society, their problems must be taken care of. Now, what teachers need to do? Teachers are likely to emphasize classroom management and highlight efficiency and how to do techniques. Ignore important questions such as why is this knowledge being taught in the first place? Now, teachers usually do this because our classroom may be considered as the best example where critical pedagogy is used as one of the teaching methods in right earnest or in true letter and spirit, when students are asking questions, beginning the question word why. क्यों से सवाल होने लगा? What or how से तो बच्चे सवाल कर ही लेते हैं. The moment they ask question why this thing, why that thing. So this is the beginning of practice of critical pedagogy in the classroom. Now students are so empowered that they have been given autonomy and freedom to raise their concern, to raise their question, and to use critical pedagogy by asking question, beginning with the question but why, and they have every right to be satisfied. And in case they are not satisfied, they should be further listened to. I'm leaving this because there are more than 80 slides. So I just have a look at the time, 12:01. That means 14 more minutes. I'll wind it up within 10 minutes because I would love to have some questions in last 4 minutes. So I'm leaving many slides. You can have quick look at these slides. Knowledge acquired in school or anywhere is not neutral or objective. It is a social construction rooted in the nexus of knowledge. I did and repeatedly discussed this with you, that there is always a question on the legitimacy of them. And the world where we live in is constructed symbolically by the mind through social interaction with others, culture, custom, historical expression. So there's referential field that influences the subject. We do talk about productive knowledge, which can be measured and quantified and is evaluated using a score. This is what we do in this. We do talk about productive knowledge. Then we have practical knowledge also. There are different types of knowledge: productive knowledge, practical knowledge. Then we need to have emancipated critical pedagogy. The call for introducing critical pedagogy is to introduce emancipated, which helps us understand how social relationships are distorted and manipulated by relations of power. And it creates the foundation for social justice, equality. So truly, if we want to introduce social justice, equality, and we want to empower our students, we need to understand how social relationships start and manipulated to suit our own interests and to have control over the people. There are two famous sociologists, Mosca and Pareto, and they propounded a theory that is the theory of new classical elite. And Gramsci also. Gramsci also talks about cultural hegemony, and these two together propounded a theory that is theory of new classical elite, new classical elite. And Mosca and Pareto were of the view that the elite class or any class which is in power, they divides the majority class on the basis of their shrewd intelligence. So seemingly, a teacher is looking an angel, but by virtue of shrewd intelligence, he is, serving his own agenda. How and why are some constructions of reality are legitimated and celebrated while others are not? I was talking about selective morality, double standard. Now the question is why some construction of reality are legitimated through media, through the political discourse, through establishment, through educational institutions, through teachers, through other stakeholders. And how our everyday common sense understanding, just social construction, get produced and lived out. Sometimes it is produced and sometimes it is lived out. What are the social functions of knowledge? See, all these questions make us what? Critically conscious. So whose interest does certain types of knowledge serve? We need to be critical as to whether this knowledge, which is being disseminated through textbook or through the mouths of the teachers, whether it is serving the government agenda or really this knowledge can be treated as legitimate knowledge. And what are the social groups which are excluded uh, uh, because of this action? Who is marginalized? Then we should also know who will be the beneficiaries and who will be the marginalized. What is the relationship between social class and knowledge taught in the school? As to whether the knowledge taught in the school, in the educational institution, serves the purpose of bringing all the marginalized groups, all the marginalized or alienated social groups into the mainstream or not, or they are further alienated because their interest is not taken into consideration. And why do we value scientific knowledge over informal? There are many informal knowledge that also must be taken into account. Why do teachers have to teach using standard English? I already discussed with you the perspective of William Laboe that we always, you know, for maintaining a standard, we do, you know, use standard. So what is the standard? The moment we use the word standard, so that means some what in between, we are not satisfied with the way others are speaking English. Again, that idea comes into existence. That is, that if somebody is having poor pronunciation, poor accent, he is not able to speak English comfortably or any language comfortably. Obviously, what will happen? The teacher or those students who are performing, they will look at those children with 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 a sarcastic view, making them feel that they do not belong to them, and that is why they are put as the one who is marked. So, how does school knowledge reinforce stereotypes about disadvantaged groups? So, these are the questions that need to be taken care of. So, a set of practices, ideologies, and values from which different groups draw to make sense of the world. So, when we say that the last pillar of education, the fourth pillar of education is learning to live together, we should know the culture, the mores, the value system, the belief system of all the social groups which are uh, part of our classroom. So, in the advent of RTE Act 2006, and with the increase of GER, that is gross enrollment ratio at the higher education level, what is happening? The social dynamics of our classroom is changing. Now, we no longer have students belonging to the class specific, and teachers would also come from the specific class. So more or less their culture was similar. Now we have students with different learning strategies, and their different backgrounds, and they use different learning strategies. Now the teachers need to change their pedagogic practices, and these pedagogic practices should be in tune with the individual learning strategies of the student. Then dominant culture, social practices, and representation. I'm leaving this because there are so many. Then subordinate culture, groups who live out social relations in subordination to the dominant class. There are many studies now being carried out. So we provide lip service to those who come from economically weaker sections. 25% quota is given to those who come from economically sections. So these children study in top class private schools, but see the classroom dynamics. On one hand, there are performing students who come from very affluent background, and they are always at the loggerhead with those who come from marginalized background. So even in the classroom, they find it difficult to adjust because according to the elite class children, they belong to the subculture. And I told you, no culture, no language can be treated as sub-language, substandard language or subculture. Now let us know, sir. Are negotiated then truly oppositional? They operate in the arena of leisure, of a critique social. There are more than 80 slides. Let us have a quick look. And wherever I feel necessary, I'll give my input. Hegemony, I already discussed. Dominant culture exercises domination over subordinate classes or groups through a process known as hegemony. And hegemony refers to the maintenance of domination through consensual social forms and social structures produced in specific site. So if it happens, and it is always stand by the political system, political system favors this. And that is why over several decades, if I'm not mistaken, over centuries, there are certain social groups there is still not. And government always gives lip service. See, we have, policies and new lucrative schemes for them for their upliftment, but no upliftment is visible. See, hegemony, The powerful win the consent of the oppressed. They give consent also. Poor people, oppressed people, they give consent. Okay, this is good. Who unknowingly participate in their own oppression, and they allow them to oppress them even further. The dominant secures hegemony by supplying symbols, representations, and practices of social life that hide unequal relations of power and power. Hegemony. This is important. So when we talk about the definition of education, a feature of politics exceeds the limits of education institution. No, now unless and until we have critical understanding of everyday experience, we cannot be called critically. So as I told you, critical consciousness, to be critical consciousness is the basic prerequisite for using critical pedagogy in the classroom in true literary. It is very essential. I have given you so many examples of when we talk about Giro, as I told you in the beginning, there's a academic community which supported the idea of critical pedagogy. And Giro, how in a decision, the struggle for democracy, language of possibility, ultimately leads to leadership. So the basic purpose is to create a pluralistic society where every idea, diversity cannot be judged on the basis of one's belief system or religion or caste or class or any ethnicity, but also diverse ideas, age, gender, and other things. So when Hero talks about diversity, so schools basically should be treated as community resource, where people from the, uh, the, the community in the vicinity come and study there. So there should be an organic bond between school or any educational institution and community. College, the community. There should be organic bond that needs to be established, and once that bond is established, there needs to be further strengthened. But if we ignore what is happening across the wall of the college campus, that means we are doing a gross injustice against those who look at us with blank eyes because they are unaware of what exactly is happening within the four walls of the. So these are the slides. Education is a tripolar policy or process of student teacher. It requires 3 hours to interact with you these issues because of the paucity of time. We have ideology and pedagogy. So I wind it up here because it's 12:14. So thank you very much. So in case you have any question, feel free to ask.
Any question? Dear participants, if you want to ask any question to resource person, please ask the question. Ismail, please raise your hand if you want to ask anything. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nice introduction, comprehensive introduction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Please send
Thank
the
you.
PPTs to our participants.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir,
sir.
once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you, sir.
Participants, we have one session at 3 p.m. on mental stress today. Please keep in mind that today is Friday, so there will be no third session, but we have an extra session on mental stress at 3 p.m. Please
Ma'am, on
join
three.
the.
ठीक है मैम, thank you very much.
Arshad Saab. Thank you very much. We will meet at 3 p.m. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
3 p.m. today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am.